The days after the awakening were quiet. The sleeper dreamed in the dark water. Humans cleaned up their cities and buried their dead. The Tarani fleet waited in orbit, uncertain about what would happen next. Vrix spent those days thinking. He thought about Vorn, dead in his ship at the bottom of the ocean. He thought about the 12,000 humans who had died fighting beside him. He thought about the thing in the trench, patient and hungry, waiting for another chance to wake. He finally understood what the humans were. They were not warriors. They were not conquerors. They were guardians. They had spent 12,000 years watching the door to oblivion, keeping it closed, paying the price with their own suffering. Every war, every conflict, every terrible act of violence in human history. It was all sacrifice. A price paid to keep the universe alive. 1 week after the awakening, Vrix flew down to Earth. He met Jay and Hannah at a small building near the ocean. It was a simple place, made of stone and wood. Inside, there were screens showing the trench. Humans sat at desks, watching, waiting, always watching. "This is the watch station," Hannah explained. "We have 100 of these around the world. People work here in shifts every hour of every day. They monitor the sleeper. They measure its dreams. They make sure it stays asleep." Vrix looked at the screens. The trench was dark and still. Nothing moved, but he could feel it, even from here. A presence. A weight. Something massive and terrible, just below the surface of the world. "How do you live like this?" Vrix asked. "Knowing what is down there. Knowing what you must do to keep it sleeping." Jay smiled sadly. "We do not think about it most of the time. We live our lives. We love our families. We enjoy what happiness we can find. But in the back of our minds, we always know. We always remember." Hannah nodded. "It is a burden. But it is our burden. We carry it so no one else has to." Vrix thought about the Tarani. His people were survivors. They had crossed galaxies to find a new home. They had faced darkness and cold and death. They thought they understood sacrifice, but they did not understand this. They could not understand what the humans endured. To choose violence every day. To wage wars they did not want. To sacrifice peace for the sake of all life in the universe. That was something beyond the Tarani. Something beyond any species Vrix had ever known. "We want to help," Vrix said finally. "The Tarani. We want to share your burden." Hannah looked at him with surprise. "You would do that? After what Vorn did? After we told you to leave?" Vorn made a mistake. He paid for it with his life. But his mistake taught us something. It taught us that you were right. The sleeper is real. The danger is real. And you cannot fight it alone forever. Jay stepped forward. His eyes were bright with something Vrix had not seen before. "Hope, what are you offering?" Jay asked. Vrix took a deep breath. "The Tarani will stay in this galaxy. We will settle the empty worlds, as you offered. But we will also join the watch. We will add our ships to your defenses. When the sleeper stirs, we will make noise beside you. When it wakes, we will fight beside you." Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took Vrix's hand. Her grip was warm and strong. "We accept," she said. "Welcome to the watch." In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The Tarani fleet spread across the galaxy, claiming worlds that had been empty for millions of years. They built new homes, new cities, new civilizations. But they never forgot Earth. They never forgot the thing in the water. Every Tarani ship carried a beacon connected to Earth. When the sleeper stirred, the beacon would sound, and every ship would add its voice to the noise. When the creature dreamed of waking, 1,000 alien engines would roar in response, adding to the chaos that kept it asleep. Vrix became the first Tarani ambassador to Earth. He spent his days working with Jay and Hana, learning their history, sharing theirs. The two species became more than allies. They became family, bound together by a secret older than the stars. Years passed. Then decades. The galaxy changed. Other species arrived, drawn by the same curiosity that had brought the Tarani. Some listened to the warnings and left. Others did not believe and had to be stopped. A few, like the Tarani, chose to join the Watch. Slowly, a network grew. Species from across the galaxy, united by a single purpose: to guard the sleeper, to keep it dreaming, to protect the universe from the hunger in the deep. Vrix grew old. His gray skin became wrinkled. His forearms became slow and weak. But he never stopped watching, never stopped listening, never stopped helping the humans with their eternal task. On his last day, he sat on a beach near the watch station. The ocean stretched before him, blue and endless. Somewhere beneath the waves, the sleeper dreamed. It had been quiet for many years, but Vrix knew it would wake again. It always did. Hana sat beside him. She was old too, her hair white, her face lined with age. But her eyes were still sharp, still watching. Any regrets? She asked. Vrix thought about the question. He thought about the archive, the warnings, the choice he had made to come to Earth. He thought about Vaughn and the 12,000 dead. He thought about the years of work, the endless watching, the burden he had chosen to carry. No, he said finally. No regrets. Only gratitude. Hana smiled. Gratitude for what? For being allowed to help. For being part of something bigger than myself. For understanding, finally, what it means to be a guardian. Hana took his hand. They sat together in silence, watching the waves roll in. Behind them, a new generation of watchers worked at their screens. Humans and Tarani side by side. Keeping the vigil. Holding the line, the sleeper dreamed on. And the guardians kept watch. When Vrix died, they buried him on Earth, near the ocean he had learned to love. His grave marker was simple. Just his name and 3 words that said everything. He watched with us. Other Tarani came to pay their respects. Aliens from a dozen species. Humans from every nation. They stood together in his grave, united by a secret they would never forget. Then they went back to work. Back to the watch. Back to the endless task of keeping the universe alive, because the sleeper never stopped dreaming, and the guardians never stopped watching. In a small room in the watch station, Jay's grandson sat at his desk. He was young, barely 20 years old, but he had been training for this his whole life. Just like his father, just like his grandfather, just like every human who had ever lived. He looked at the screen. The trench was dark and quiet, but somewhere in the depths, something stirred. He pressed a button. Across the galaxy, a billion voices answered. The watch continued. The argument lasted for 3 days. The Tarani commanders fought with words instead of weapons, but the battle was just as fierce. Some wanted to leave immediately. Others wanted to stay and accept the humans' bargain. And a small group, led by Vaughn, wanted proof. How can we make a decision based on stories? Vaughn demanded. His voice echoed through the council chamber. We are scientists, explorers. We need evidence. We need data. Vrix shook his head. The evidence is 17 dead civilizations. The data is in the archive I found. Every species that tested the human story ended up extinct. Maybe those species were weak, Warren said. Maybe they made mistakes. We are Tarani. We are smarter, more careful. We could scan the trench from a safe distance. We could study this creature without waking it. The humans said that is exactly what the others thought. Dreth said quietly. They all believed they were special. They all believed they were different. They were all wrong. But Vorn was not listening. He had already made up his mind. Rix could see it in his eyes. The young commander wanted glory. He wanted to be the one who solved the mystery of Earth. He wanted to prove everyone wrong. That night, Vorn took his ship and left the fleet. He did not ask permission. He did not say goodbye. He simply flew toward Earth, toward the Pacific Ocean, toward the Mariana Trench. Rix woke to alarms screaming through his ship. He ran to the control room and saw Vorn's vessel on the screen, diving toward the dark water below. "Stop him," Rix ordered. "Send fighters. Block his path." But it was too late. Vorn's ship was already deep in Earth's atmosphere, already heading for the ocean, already beginning its scan. On Earth, everything changed in an instant. Dr. Park J was sleeping in his small apartment when his phone rang. He answered it and heard a voice he had hoped never to hear. The voice of the emergency system. The voice that meant the end of the world. "Code Black," the voice said. "The sleeper is waking. All protocols active. Report to your station immediately." Jay threw on his clothes and ran outside. The streets were full of people, all moving with purpose. No panic, no screaming. Just calm, determined motion. They had trained for this their entire lives. Their parents had trained for it. Their grandparents. Every generation since the First Awakening had prepared for this moment. Captain Yunhana was already at the command center when Jay arrived. Her face was pale but steady. She was studying a holographic display of the Mariana Trench. "How bad is it?" Jay asked. Hannah pointed at the screen. Deep in the water, something was moving. A shape too large to be real. A darkness that swallowed light. It was rising slowly, inch by inch, toward the surface. The alien ship scanned it directly, Hannah said. Full power sensors. It was like shining a light in its eyes while it slept. It is awake now. And it is angry. Jay felt his heart stop. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less." It is moving faster than before. It knows we are here. It knows about the aliens. It wants to see them. Across the planet, 8 billion humans sprang into action. Ancient protocols activated in every country, every city, every village. Drums began to beat. Sirens began to wail. People started making noise, as much noise as they could. They banged pots and pans. They played music at maximum volume. They screamed and shouted and sang. In every military base, soldiers mobilized. Not to fight each other, but to create the appearance of war. Tanks fired blanks. Jets flew in combat formations. Explosions lit up the sky, carefully controlled, hurting no one but making incredible noise. Vrix watched from orbit with horror. The entire planet was erupting. It looked like chaos. It looked like madness. But he knew now what it really was. A song. A lullaby for a monster. He tried to contact Vorn, but there was no answer. The young commander's ship was still in the water, still scanning, still feeding data to machines that would never be read. Then the feed from Vorn's ship went silent. Not static, not interference, just silence. Complete and absolute. What happened? Dreth asked. Rix did not answer. He did not need to. They all knew what had happened. The sleeper had touched Vorn's mind. And Vorn had stopped. His heart, his brain, his life. All gone in an instant. On Earth, people felt it too. A pressure in their heads. A whisper in their minds. The sleeper was reaching out, searching, tasting. Thousands of people collapsed, overwhelmed by the psychic weight of something older than time. But the humans did not stop. They kept making noise, kept creating chaos. Hannah stood in the command center, coordinating the response, her voice steady despite the pressure crushing her thoughts. "More drums," she ordered. "More explosions. Wake up the volcanoes. Start the earthquakes. Give it everything we have." Jay worked beside her, monitoring the sleeper's movements. It had stopped rising. The noise was reaching it. The chaos was confusing it. But it was not going back to sleep. "It is fighting us," Jay said. "It knows what we are doing. It is resisting." Hannah nodded grimly. "Then we fight harder." In the fleet above, Rix made a decision. He could not undo what Vorn had done. But he could help. He could add to the noise. "All ships," he commanded. "Full power to engines. Maximum thrust. Create as much energy as possible. Make as much noise as we can." The Tyranni fleet roared to life. 50 ships fired their engines at full power, sending waves of energy rippling through space. It was not much. It was probably useless. But Rix had to try. On Earth, Hannah noticed a new energy. She looked up at the sky with surprise. The aliens were helping. Despite everything, despite Vorn's mistake, they were helping. "Thank you," she whispered. The battle lasted for hours. Humans and Tyranni together, making noise, creating chaos, fighting against an enemy that could not be fought. The sleeper rose and fell, testing the surface, tasting the world above. Finally, as dawn broke over the Pacific Ocean, the sleeper stopped moving. The pressure in everyone's minds began to fade. The darkness in the trench grew still. It was going back to sleep. Jay collapsed into a chair, exhausted beyond words. Hannah stood at the window, watching the sun rise over the ocean. Behind her, screen showed the casualty reports. 12,000 dead. 12,000 humans who had fallen to the sleeper's touch. +1. Tyranni. Rix's voice came through the communication system. He sounded tired, old. "I am sorry," he said. Vorn acted alone. He did not represent our people. Hannah nodded slowly. "I know. I saw you helping. I saw your ships adding to the noise. You fought beside us. It was the least we could do. It was enough." They stood in silence, human and alien, watching the sun rise over a world that had almost ended. The sleeper was asleep again, but it had been awake longer than ever before. And next time, it might not go back to sleep at all. Rix did not sleep that night. He sat in his observation room, staring at the blue planet below. The words of the humans played over and over in his mind. A creature older than the galaxy. A thing that could kill with its thoughts. An ancient horror sleeping in the dark water, dreaming of death. He wanted to believe they were lying. He wanted to think this was a trick to scare away visitors. But he had seen their faces. He had heard the fear in their voices. Dr. Park Jae and Captain Yoon Hannah were not lying. They were terrified. The next morning, he called a meeting with his fleet commanders. 30 Tyranni leaders gathered in the main ship. They sat in a circle, their gray faces serious, their black eyes watching Rix with doubt. Old Dreth spoke first. "You believe these humans? You believe their story about a monster in the water?" Rix nodded slowly. "I believe they believe it. I believe 17 dead civilizations believed it too. Perhaps the humans killed those civilizations," another commander said. His name was Vorn, and he was young and aggressive. "Perhaps this story is a weapon, a way to make us afraid. Then why would they warn us?" Rix asked. "If they wanted us dead, they would let us scan the ocean. They would let us wake this creature. Instead, they beg us to leave." The room grew quiet. The Tyranni looked at each other with uncertainty. "What do you suggest?" Dreth asked. Rix stood up. He walked to the window and looked at Earth. "I suggest we talk to them more, learn more, understand what we are dealing with before we make any decisions." Vorn made a sound of frustration. We do not have time for talking. Our home galaxy is dying. We need new worlds. We need resources. We came here to survive, not to be afraid of fairy tales. And if the fairy tale is real? Rix asked quietly. If we wake this creature and it kills all of us? What happens to the Tyranny then? Vorn had no answer. Rix returned to Earth's orbit. He sent a message to the humans, asking for another meeting. Jay and Hannah came back, this time bringing others with them. Scientists, historians, military leaders. People who knew the truth about the thing in the water. They met on a neutral ship, halfway between the fleet and Earth. The room was large and bright, filled with chairs and tables. Rix sat on one side with his commanders. The humans sat on the other side, their faces serious. Jay spoke first. He told the full history of the creature, how humans had discovered it by accident, thousands of years ago, how it had woken briefly and killed millions of people in a single night, how the survivors had learned to keep it sleeping. We call it the Sleeper, Jay said. We do not know its real name. We do not think it has one. It existed before names, before language, before thought itself, Hannah continued. Every human culture remembers that first awakening. We call it different things. The flood, the end times, the day of darkness. Every religion, every myth, every ancient story about the end of the world. They are all memories of the Sleeper. Rix listened carefully. How did your ancestors put it back to sleep? They screamed, Hannah said simply. They fought. They made war. They beat drums and shouted and cried. The noise reached the Sleeper in its darkness. And somehow, the chaos soothed it. Like a mother singing to a baby, the violence put it to sleep. That does not make sense, Vorn said. He was sitting next to Rix, his arms crossed, his face angry. Violence is not peaceful. War is not calming, Jay nodded. You are right. It does not make sense to us either. We have studied the Sleeper for thousands of years, and we still do not understand it. We only know what works. Conflict, chaos, noise. These things keep it dreaming. And peace? Rix asked. What happens if there is peace? The humans looked at each other. Their faces grew dark. We tried, Hannah said. Once, about 200 years ago, humanity created a perfect society. No war, no conflict, no violence. Everyone worked together. Everyone was happy. She paused. Her hands were shaking. The Sleeper began to wake. We felt it in our minds. A pressure, a hunger. People started dying for no reason. Their hearts stopped. Their brains stopped. We lost 1 million people in 3 days. Jay took over. His voice was soft and sad. We had to restart the wars. We had to create new conflicts. It was the hardest thing our species ever did. We had to choose to hurt each other, to fight each other, to kill each other. All to keep the Sleeper asleep. Rix understood now. The humans were not violent by nature. They were violent by necessity. Every war, every conflict, every act of aggression, it was all a performance. A song to keep the monster sleeping. You have done this for 12,000 years, Rix said slowly. Your entire history, all of your suffering, it was all for this? Hannah nodded. Yes, that is. Rix searched for the right word. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard. Jay smiled, but there was no happiness in it. We are not heroes. We are not special. We are just guards, jailers. We watch the door and make sure the monster never gets out. Vorn leaned forward. His doubt had turned to something else. Interest, maybe, or respect. What do you want from us? He asked. We want you to leave, Hannah said bluntly. We want you to take your fleet and go far away. Warn other species. Tell them about the Sleeper. Tell them to stay away from Earth. And if we cannot leave, Rix asked, our home is dying. We need new worlds. There are billions of habitable planets in this galaxy. Can we not have some of them? The humans talked among themselves for a long moment. Finally, Jay turned back to Rix. You can have any world you want, he said. Any planet, any moon, any asteroid. Just not Earth. And never, ever scan the Mariana Trench. Never try to study the sleeper. Never wake it up. If we agree to these terms, Rick said, you will let us stay? You will share this galaxy with us? Hannah nodded. We will do more than that. We will help you. We will share our resources, our technology, our knowledge. We will be your allies, your friends. And if we refuse? Vorn asked. Hannah's face became hard. Then we will stop you. Not because we want to, but because we must. The sleeper cannot wake. The universe depends on it. Rix thought about this for a long time. He thought about his people, dying in a cold galaxy far away. He thought about the creatures sleeping in the dark water. He thought about the warnings from 17 dead civilizations. I need to speak with my commanders, he said finally. This decision is too big for one person. Jay nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Rix knew he did not have much time. In his fleet, there were already those who did not believe. Those who wanted proof. Those who would scan the trench, no matter what the humans said. And somewhere in the deep water, the sleeper waited, patient, hungry, dreaming of the day it would finally wake. The Tyranny fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system on a quiet Tuesday morning. Rix counted the ships from his observation deck. 50 vessels, each one carrying 1,000 of his people. 50,000 Tyranny, all looking for a new home. All hoping Earth would give them answers. They hid behind the largest planet, a giant ball of gas the humans called Jupiter. From there, they watched. They listened. They learned Earth was beautiful. Rix had never seen so much blue. His home world was gray and cold, covered in ice and stone. But Earth was alive. Water covered most of its surface. Green plants grew everywhere. Animals swam in the oceans and flew through the air. It was perfect. The humans were everywhere. 8 billion of them, living in cities and villages across the planet. They built tall buildings and fast machines. They sent small ships into space. They talked to each other through invisible signals that filled the air. They were loud, very loud. Rick studied them for 3 days. He watched their news, learned their languages, read their history. They were a strange species. They fought wars against each other. They built weapons that could destroy their own world. They seemed to hate each other as much as they loved each other. But there was something else. Something Rix almost missed. The humans never talked about the ocean. Not really. They had maps of every continent, every mountain, every desert. But the deep parts of their ocean were blank, unmapped, unknown. And there was a feeling. Rix could not explain it. Whenever his instruments scanned the deepest part of the ocean, a place humans called the Mariana Trench, something felt wrong. The readings were normal. The water was just water. But Rix felt cold every time he looked at it. On the 4th day, he made a decision. The Tyranny would reveal themselves. They would make contact with the humans. They would ask about the warnings, about the thing in the water. They would get their answers. The fleet moved closer. They did not hide anymore. They let Earth's instruments see them. They waited. The response came quickly. Radio signals, confused and excited. The humans had seen them. The whole planet was watching. A small human ship came to meet them. It was primitive compared to Tyranny technology, but it flew well. Rix watched it approach with respect. These creatures had only been in space for 100 years, but they were already reaching for the stars. The ship docked with Rix's vessel. 2 humans stepped out. One was a man, tall and thin, with kind eyes behind glass circles on his face. He wore a white coat and carried a small device that blinked with lights. The other was a woman, shorter but strong. She wore a uniform with many symbols on it. Her eyes were sharp, careful, dangerous. "I am Dr. Park J," the man said. His voice was calm, but Vrix could hear his heart beating fast. "I am a scientist. This is Captain Yoon Hana. She is our military commander. We speak for Earth." Vrix stepped forward. He was taller than both humans, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were large and black, made for seeing in darkness. He knew he looked strange to them. Frightening maybe, but the humans did not run. They stood their ground. "I am Vrix," he said. "I am an explorer. My people are the Tarani. We come in peace." Jay smiled. It was a warm smile, full of hope. "We hoped you would say that. We have been waiting to meet others like you. Others from the stars." But Hannah did not smile. She watched Vrix with those sharp eyes. She was looking for something. Danger, maybe? Or lies. "Why are you here?" she asked. Her voice was hard, direct. Vrix decided to be honest. "We found an archive. A library of warnings from dead civilizations. They all said the same thing. They said Earth is dangerous. They said you are protecting something. Something in your ocean." The effect was immediate. Jay's smile disappeared. His face went pale. Hannah's hand moved toward her weapon. The air in the room became thick with tension. "What else did the warning say?" Hannah asked. "They said every species that came to Earth died. Not because of humans. Because of what you guard." Jay and Hannah looked at each other. Something passed between them. Fear, sadness, and something else. Resignation. "You should not have come," Jay said quietly. "We try to keep it secret. We try to keep everyone away. But they always come. They always want to know." Vrix felt his curiosity burn brighter. "What is it? What are you protecting?" Hannah shook her head. "Not protecting, containing. There is a difference." She walked to the window of the ship. Outside, Earth hung in the blackness of space. Beautiful, blue, innocent. "Humans discovered it 12,000 years ago," she said. "Our ancestors found something in the deepest part of the ocean. Something that was sleeping. Something old. Older than Earth. Older than the sun. Maybe older than the galaxy itself." Jay continued the story. His voice was heavy. "We do not know what it is. We do not know where it came from. We only know that it must not wake. If it wakes, everything dies. Not just Earth. Everything. Every planet. Every star. Every living thing in the universe." Vrix felt cold. Colder than the ice of his home world. "How do you keep it asleep?" Hannah turned to look at him. Her eyes were old. Too old for her young face. "Noise," she said. "Movement. Distraction. The creature sleeps when there is chaos above it. It stays dormant when there is conflict. Every human war, every fight, every loud and violent thing we do, it all has a purpose. We keep it entertained. We keep it dreaming. We keep it from waking up." Jay nodded. "Humans seem violent because we must be violent. We seem chaotic because we must be chaotic. It is not who we are. It is what we do. To save everyone." Vrix understood now. The warnings were not about humans being dangerous. They were about humans being guards, jailers, keeping something terrible locked away in the dark water. "The other species," Rick said. "The ones who died. What did they do wrong?" Hannah's face grew hard. "They did not believe us. They scanned the trench with their machines. They tried to study the creature. They poked and prodded and examined. And they woke it. Just for a moment. Just for a second. But a second was enough. They all died within a week, Jay added. The creature reached out with its mind. It touched every member of their species across the entire galaxy, and they simply stopped. Their hearts stopped. Their brains stopped. They fell down and never got up. Rix took a step back. His legs felt weak. And then it went back to sleep? Yes, Hannah said. We sang to it. We screamed and fought and made so much noise that it grew tired. It closed its eyes and dreamed again. But each time it wakes, it stays awake a little longer. Each time, it becomes harder to put back to sleep. She looked at Rix with something like pity. That is why you should not have come. Your fleet, your ships, your curiosity, it is dangerous. If you scan the trench, if you try to study the creature, you will wake it. And this time, we may not be able to sing it back to sleep. Rix looked out the window at his fleet. 50 ships. 50,000 people. All of them curious. All of them wanting answers. And somewhere below the blue water of Earth, something ancient was listening. The ship was old. Very old. Rix had seen many things in his long life, but nothing like this place. The archive floated in the empty space between galaxies, far from any star. It was built by someone who wanted it hidden, someone who wanted it forgotten. Rix was not supposed to be here. His people, the Dorani, had strict rules about exploring dead zones. But Rix was curious. He had always been curious. That was why he became an explorer. That was why he was alone in his small ship, floating towards something that should not exist. The archive was a sphere made of black metal. It did not reflect light. It ate light. Rix felt cold just looking at it. His instruments told him it was millions of years old. Maybe billions. The Dorani had only been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. This thing was ancient when his ancestors were still swimming in warm oceans. He docked his ship carefully. The archive let him in. That surprised him. He expected locks, traps, or weapons. Instead, the door simply opened. As if it was waiting for him. Inside, the air was thin but breathable. Rix walked through long hallways made of the same black metal. There were no lights, but his eyes could see in the dark. The Dorani had evolved on a world with no sun. Darkness was home to him. He found the main room after walking for an hour. It was large, bigger than any building on his home world. The walls were covered with screens. Thousands of them. Millions maybe. Each screen showed a different symbol, different writing, different languages from different species. Rix understood now. This was a library, a place where dying civilizations left their final messages, their warnings, their regrets. He touched the nearest screen. It lit up under his fingers. The language was unknown to him, but the archive translated it automatically. A voice spoke in his mind, soft and sad. We are the Kalori. We are dying. We write this so others may learn from our mistake. We found the blue world in the small galaxy, the third planet from a yellow star. We thought they were primitive. We thought they were weak. We were wrong. They guard something that should never wake. Do not go there. Do not contact them. Do not investigate. If you value your people, stay away from Earth. The message ended. Rix stood in silence. He had heard of Earth. Every species had heard of Earth. It was a small world with soft creatures called humans. They had only recently discovered space travel. They were not a threat to anyone. He touched another screen. A different voice spoke. We are the Moradi. We ignored the warnings. We went to Earth. We woke something in the deep water. It destroyed us. Not the humans. The thing they were keeping asleep. The humans tried to stop us. They begged us to leave. We did not listen. Now, We are gone. Learn from our death. Rix felt his skin grow cold. He touched another screen. And another. And another. 17 different messages. 17 different species. All of them said the same thing. All of them warned about Earth, not about humans. About something humans were protecting. Something in the water. Something old and terrible and hungry. Each species had ignored the warning. Each species was now extinct. Rick sat down on the cold floor. He needed to think. The Tyranni were not fools. They did not rush into danger. But they also needed resources. Their home galaxy was dying. The stars were going dark one by one. They needed new worlds, new space, new hope. Earth's galaxy was young and full of life. It had billions of habitable planets. It had everything the Tyranni needed to survive. But first, they needed to know if Earth was safe. They needed to know if these warnings were real. Rix stood up. He was an explorer. It was his job to find answers. He could not go home with old stories and ancient fears. He needed proof. He needed to see Earth with his own eyes. He walked back to his ship. The archive let him leave as easily as it had let him enter. As he flew away, he looked back at the black sphere. It seemed smaller now, less important. Surely those ancient species had made mistakes. Surely they had done something wrong. The Tyranni were smarter, more careful. They would not make the same errors. Rix sent a message to his fleet. They were waiting 3 light years away, hidden in a gas cloud. He told them what he had found. He told them about the warnings. Then he told them his plan. We go to Earth, he said. We observe from a distance. We learn about these humans and what they are protecting. If there is danger, we leave. If there is opportunity, we take it. The Tyranni did not survive this long by running from shadows. The fleet commander, Old Dreth, responded quickly. His voice was heavy with doubt. 17 civilizations, Rix, all dead. All warned us. Perhaps we should listen. Rix shook his head, even though Dreth could not see him. 17 civilizations failed. That does not mean we will fail. We are Tyranni. We are patient. We are careful. We will succeed where they did not. Dreth was silent for a long moment. Then he agreed. The fleet would go to Earth. They would study it from afar. They would find the truth. Rix set his course for the small galaxy. For the yellow star. For the blue world called Earth. He did not feel fear. He felt excitement. Whatever secret Earth was hiding, he would discover it. He would bring that knowledge back to his people. He would save the Uranidad as he jumped to faster-than-light speed. He did not see the archive light up behind him. Every screen activated at once. Every message played at the same time. Thousands of voices speaking thousands of languages, all saying the same words. Another one goes. Another one will die. The thing in the water waits. It is always patient. It is always hungry. And soon it will wake again. The archive went dark. It would wait for the next explorer. There would always be another one. There always was.